Welcome, guys, to another episode. How's it going today, Sasha? How you feeling?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm okay. It's end of day here, 7 p.m. in London, morning for you. So yeah, I know I'm like tired from the day. You're awake from a new day.
Absolutely. I got my coffee in the morning, so I'm ready to kickstart the day. And maybe for the audience listening, you're a founder of not just one app but two apps. Talk us through a bit of a journey. I'd like to go down a bit of a journey with you. What was the journey like? I guess start off with what you built the first. Which app came first? Put it that way. Which app came first?
So first there was Blindlee, which was a which is still exists, a blind dating app where two strangers who don't know each other, they go on a 3-minute blurred video call. So imagine you're having a FaceTime, except that there's a blur filter and that happens on the app. It's just 3 minutes. And during this call, in a case of a heterosexual call, for example, the woman controls the blur. And then only after that, they can decide whether they want to match or not. So you're basically flipping the equation. Tinder is going to give you a lot of quantity. Blindlee is going to give you quality rather than quantity. That
Right.
was the first app.
Okay. And I want to just kind of stay on that for a little bit. So, what made you? So, what position do you hold? Are you a founder or you're a co-founder? Are you of
I
that?
am co-founder with
Yep.
my cousin Glenn, who we grew up together in Belgium. That's where my French accent's from. And we've
Wow.
been kind of building stuff together for a while now.
Okay, that's cool. So, what was the reason you created the app? Were you kind of maybe frustrated with the current dating apps or something, or?
Yeah, so I had been a big dating app user myself at that time. And yes, I was frustrated because at the end of the day, whether it depends on your intention. If you're looking for something casual, Tinder and the rest is fine, right? You get a lot of profiles and it's great. But if you're looking for something a bit more serious, then it's very hard to judge a book by its cover. You're just judging based on pictures. You're not getting to see someone's character. And that's what Tinder does. It gives you a ton of matches. And that's going to be basically you wasting time going on a date with someone and wasting an expensive Uber fare and an alcohol drink if you haven't checked if there's vibe, if there's chemistry with that person. So that was just personal frustration, but also my cousin's sister, my cousin's, so my co-founder's sister had gone on a date with someone from Tinder who, when he appeared, he was actually 15 years older than his profile. And then I was
Ooh.
keeping hearing from a lot of friends like these kind of catfishing stories. And at that point, you realize, well, hold on, we need to do something about it. For people who actually want to get a serious relationship, let's do something where they can judge someone based on their character, not just a picture. And that's where Blindlee came from. So the Blindlee is actually an acronym for blind love. So it's a blind dating app. You get to see someone, but it's blurred. Of course, the point is you unblur during these 3 minutes, but at least your first impression is not going to be on how that person looks, rather than on other inputs. What is the accent like? How does the body language behave while it's still blurred? And in fact, I even met my girlfriend on Blindlee. So I'm
Wow.
now in a relationship since a bit over a year, and we met on Blindlee. So we had that blur call. She was a stranger, but I couldn't see her yet, but I was listening to other inputs. Her accent, she's Latin American, so you could hear like a Latin American accent, and other sort of thing which make you kind of decide based on the quality, not just on the picture.
That's right. There's so many things beyond the picture that are attractive for a person, especially like a female. I know that sometimes just the way a female can speak or articulate herself is sometimes is attractive in itself. So yeah, absolutely. I agree with what you're saying there. And
Thanks.
yeah, and what was the process behind building the app? Was it so? What I guess what was the day-to-day activities that you needed to do to get this app on in the marketplace?
So Blindly, at that time and still today, was a side project.
Okay.
So I have a full-time job, and on the side, I was building with Glenn, my cousin. We were just creating Blindly. So I'm the least technical out of the two. Glenn is very technical, so he was busy with all the development of the Android app and the iPhone app, and I was focusing on the other stuff. So the marketing, the finances, getting the word out, the commercial stuff, the legal stuff, and it was pretty cool. We were featured into a lot of different publications: TechCrunch, Forbes, Vox, Men's Health, Esquire, and that was great because we came out basically in late 2019 as a video dating app, right? And then suddenly the pandemic hit the world. And all of these apps, Tinder, Bumble, they didn't have video dating because most people would just chat. It was a bit taboo to say to someone, hey, can we go on a FaceTime before meeting in person? And we were suddenly there with a video dating app. I promise we didn't foresee the pandemic, but we just had that. And suddenly we started getting all of these articles and people using the app. So it was great for us, but very quickly the big guys caught up and they added video dating into the apps. And people today mostly use it. You don't go really on a date, or very few people go on a date without having done that vibe check. So the Wall Street Journal at that time in March had said, oh, here are some apps where you can do some vibe checks with someone before going on a date. And they mentioned Blindlee because that's what people were doing. Today, all the big apps do it as well. But it was funny because we really saw a paradigm shift where going from a date on a dating app to a real physical date, that was the step. And there was no video in between. And we really saw a paradigm shift where now video is acceptable. Whereas before the pandemic, video was a bit taboo. It was a bit weird to ask someone.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to, on the marketing side of things, I'm just curious. So what was your strategy towards marketing the application? Was it targeting all these major publications, or what? I guess maybe run me through the strategy of the marketing.
So we were a little bootstrap startup.
Okay.
Imagine this garage style startup, no investor money behind us. That means also no marketing funds. Okay. So the main strategy for us was press outreach. We were reaching out in lots of numbers, because it is a numbers game at the end, to a lot of different journalists, and of course targeting everywhere from small to big publications, and following up and creating different strategies to get into their inbox, or at least get a reply. And that's what helped us. And then the moment you get the first and the second article, it's easier to go show credibility to get the future articles, because you can say, well, I was featured in Forbes, I was featured in the Wall Street Journal. Why don't we continue? But also there was an element of timing. We were with a video dating app at the right time. It was very hot at that time. It still is. It's just now there's a bit more competition, but that definitely helped us to get some press coverage as well.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because I know it can be difficult to, I guess, from what I'm understanding, it's difficult to get your foot in the door, like to get that initial communication. And then I guess once you have that initial communication, you've got some leverage to go off. So
yeah, exactly. And these journalists are getting hundreds of pictures a day. Hundreds, so you just need to find something that kind of cuts through the noise for them, something that grabs their attention, or consistently following up.
Yeah, because I mean, my experience is sometimes I want to have guests on the podcast, and sometimes I reach out and I send them videos actually, but it hasn't been.
Videos can also work, of course.
Yeah, videos can work because it's more of a personalized. You're putting a lot of effort into. Yeah, so.
Exactly, videos, just things that are not just a standard email, will already put you above the average email. Doesn't mean you're going to get a reply, but it's increasing your chance of reply.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And so you launched in 2019, and what's the journey been like so far with the whole app? Is it you still continuing the development with it, or?
Yeah, so it's been a pretty exciting journey, especially towards the first 6 months of the pandemic. It was very exciting, a lot of press coverage, lots of users coming in, and we're still continuing with the app. The app is still available to download for free today on both the App Store and the Google Play Store. However, we have taken the technology that we created, so the blur video technology, into a different app where we target essentially the well-being industry. So right now, because of the pandemic, there are a lot of people who need to chat. They don't necessarily need to talk to a psychologist, but they just want to chat. You might have a fight with your girlfriend, a bad day at work. Maybe you're stuck in your routine, living at home and not going to work. Whatever it is, something small that you need to get off your chest. And what we noticed is people at that time were using Blindlee to basically chat, not to date. Well, of course, many people were using it to date, but there was a certain percentage that was using it just to chat.
Just
They
the
were
chat.
alone around
Okay.
the early pandemic. And then we realized, well, hold on, maybe there's something more than a dating app we can do. Maybe we can create some support network. And then we started to think, okay, well, if we do a peer-to-peer support network, stranger talking to stranger, that could be worth it. But there's already a few apps out there. So we started analyzing a bit more, how does the area of well-being, or the area of well-being work? And what we realized is, when someone today has something they want to get off their chest, they typically go and speak about it with their friends. So you have a fight with your boss, you have a fight with your girlfriend, a fight with your sibling, maybe you want to improve, you want to learn a new skill, whatever it is, you're going to speak with your friend. Now, the problem with friends is, A, they might not be able to tell you what you need to know. They're not experts, they're just your friends. Or B, maybe you're a bit too embarrassed to ask them. It might be a personal situation and you kind of don't want to say or disclose the details to them. So when your friends are kind of, that informal option, the next option you have after your friends is a very large and significant jump to go see a therapist. And this is a scary and expensive jump. If you really have some mental health issue, let's say you do have depression or anxiety, then that step is required. But if you're just the average Joe who wants to get something off their chest, then that jump is typically very scary and expensive, and it has a taboo. And there's no solution in between. So there's really no solution between speaking to your friends, which is informal, and making the large jump to formal, professional, or clinical help. The only solution in between you'll find today are emergency hotlines, but they tend to be more for extreme cases, suicide prevention, domestic abuse. So these are not really going to help you. And that's essentially what we're trying to attack. So we basically used the blur technology we had created for the dating app for Blindlee, and we pivoted it. We used it in a different app that we called Relief, where essentially you who want to chat get on a 20-minute video call where you are shown blurred to kind of remain anonymous, but you can remove the blur if you decide. You're getting on a 20-minute call with a psychology postgrad, because a psychology postgrad, if someone who has a bit more experience than your friend, they've studied it at a postgrad level, they've seen some stuff, but they're still not licensed. So you're not making that jump to professional clinical help, but you're at least getting between that gap of informal and formal help. And the benefit from a user is it's 20 minutes, it's very quick, it's informal, it's a psychology postgrad, it's anonymous. We use the blur filter we created, although you can remove it if you decide. And also it's cheap. It's around 10 pounds. I'm not sure how much that is in Australian dollars, but it's around 10 pounds or 12 euros, of which most goes to the postgrad because they're giving the service. We're just a marketplace.
And that's
for the postgrads, sorry, go ahead.
Is that a monthly subscription? Is it?
No, so this is for a one-off call. So basically a 20-minute
one-off call. Okay, I understand. Okay.
Yeah, it's a one-off call, 20-minute call, 10 pounds. Most of it goes to the postgrad because they're giving the service. Yeah. And you're getting that relief, that's why the app is called Relief, of getting that thing, off your chest. So it is not for people with mental health issues. People who really have mental health issues should probably make that jump to professional help. Okay. But for the average Joe who just has something they want to speak about but don't want to get to their friend, they need a bit more support and casual support, I want to add. Then they can use Relief because they can get matched, and there are around 25 different profiles to their postgrads. They cover 10 different languages, they cover different parts of the world, they have different cultural experiences. So they can pick one and say, okay, I want to book 20 minutes with this one. And then they have that call.
Okay. And how do you get in contact with these therapists? How do you organize the therapist side of things?
So with the psychology postgrads, I just want to clarify.
Psychologists, yes. Yeah.
So the psychology postgrad, they are not therapists, they're not psychologists because they're not licensed yet. So that's the whole point of staying within the gap where there's no solution today. So the way we went about it is we had created a form, a Google form where we explained the app before it came out, and we explained the concept, and we said, okay, everyone who has an initial interest in participating, please fill in the form. And they had to give us different things, their studies and sort of stuff. And we targeted a few people that we had found on Facebook and LinkedIn groups. So many people put their email address on the LinkedIn page, on their LinkedIn profile. So we were targeting postgrad of psychologists, getting their email, sending an email. And at the end, we had about 100 different responses.
Wow.
So we had to cut through the noise and see who is worth speaking to. And that after all of these interviews and onboarding and also training, because they are trained to spot whether someone actually has maybe an issue and they might need some further referral. So in that case, we went down from these 100 who filled in, cutting through the noise, interviewing, to a final 25. And these are the ones who are today available on the app to be booked.
Cool. What's been your biggest challenge in both apps, either or?
So let's focus on Relief, I think, because there the challenge is quite tough. The biggest challenge we see with Relief right now, and we have already users using it, but the biggest challenge is trying to explain the concept across, because it's a new category, it doesn't exist. So I think the best example I can use is in the early 1900s or 1800s, people didn't have cars. They were using horses, right? They were transporting themselves with horses and carriages. So at that time, Henry Ford, who created the Ford company, who create cars, he said a quote. He said, if you had asked people at that time what they would have wanted, they would have said they would want faster horses, because that's the only thing they could have imagined. It's just horses. Who could picture a car? Today, we're all using cars. But at that time, it was just beyond imagination, because it's a category that didn't exist. Now, I don't think we're as innovative as cars, but we're in this category that doesn't really exist, where people can't imagine. Today, they either go to speak to their friends or they go to see a therapist. They can't really imagine a solution that fits in between, where it's more than your friend, but less than a psychologist. And this is where we're struggling, which is the biggest challenge right now. Sorry, is how do we define the concept in a very short amount of words? Because I can explain it to you in a minute over the phone or on a call. But on the website, you've got a very short attention span of people who just go on the website, and you need to get the concept across in very few words. And that's what we've been trying to basically play with at the moment. We've done different experiments, how people react, what's the best word they get to. And it's still a working process. It's definitely not finalized, but we're slowly getting there, and we're slowly seeing that people are getting more the concept and what Relief is about from the messaging we currently have.
Okay, how do you capture people's attention in this very limited attention that we have as humans right now? Well, because that's a big challenge, right? I guess. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, yeah. I guess the question was, what's the strategy behind capturing people's attention?
Yeah, so I don't think we have a proven strategy at the moment. When they go on the website, so the website, by the way, is minirelief.com, because Relief was taken, of course, relief.com, but the website is minirelief.com, so it's
Mini
like a small
Relief.
relief.
Okay. Yeah.
And the way they get on the website, they go on the website and they say, casually talk about what bothers you, get personalized support from a psychology postgrad who knows more than your friend. So we're still testing that messaging, but that basically gets a message across. Okay, I can casually talk, I can get some short-term support without really going formal. It still is someone who's more than my friend, but less than a therapist. And that's what we're trying to get across. We're now also thinking about creating a video soon, so that we can explain it in a very short 20-30 second video, because people do not have more time than that. But at the moment, oh, you're sharing the screen.
Yeah, I'm just showing for maybe someone's watching at home. So this is your website, minirelief.com.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
that's the website, and that's where we're trying to explain basically in a very short attention span what the concept is about. Now you scroll down, but most people just look at the top and then scroll down, and that's where you've got to really focus 90% of your work. It's in that wording.
Do you know how people actually look at the website? Like, do they like where their eyes go, or is there any studies like based on, like, have you found any?
No, so we don't know about our website. We do know from main studies that have analyzed generic websites where most people focus on. The part where you see casually talk about what bothers you on all the way to the top, that's where basically 90% of the work has to go into. Most people, if they don't scroll, stop there. So, and with the tagline there, which says from a psychology postgrad. Now you scroll and you're reading through it and you'll understand. But the majority of the work and majority of the eyes of the people end up in the top part of the website.
Okay, that's cool. That's awesome. And how did you? I guess so. You've obviously you've hired, so you've got someone developing. You've got like a
This is
different
my co-founder and me. We're developing it ourselves.
developing co-founder, and you've also developed the dating app as well. So
Yes, well,
it's
this is basically
just
this came out of the dating app into a separate app, but
okay.
it's a completely different app. So we had to redevelop the whole thing. The only thing we had was the technology for blurring the calls. So the user there, anyone who's using Relief, will be blurred by default to kind of remain anonymous, that you can just speak without revealing your identity. But you can remove the blur if you decide. If you want to reveal yourself, be our guest. But that's the only thing we had. And then we had to wrap it and develop the whole app again, because it's a completely different app. It's not a dating app. You need to create profiles. You need to have the ability to schedule calls, to have the ability like a Calendly. So we had to develop this ourselves, to add a scheduling ability so that the psychology postgrads can put in their availability and users can then book any available times, just like a Calendly link. So all of this had to be developed, and we did that.
How much does it cost to develop an app?
Well, that's the question we get asked.
Very common question.
Yes.
And there's no answer. There's no definitive answer though, is there? Because
no, there's no definitive answer. I always I answer by asking another question. How much does it cost to buy a house? Right? There's a million factors affecting it. Where is the house located? Is it in the US? Is it in London where it's crazy expensive? Or is it somewhere in Serbia where it might be cheaper? Are you building a small flat? Are you building a palace? So it's the same with apps. It depends on what you're building. Is it a small app? Is it very complicated? Are you building a social network? Are you building a game? That's kind of the complexity of the app. But also, where are you building it? Are you getting developers in the US or the UK where it's very expensive? You're going to be paying Silicon Valley rates. Are you getting them in India where it's very cheap? Or are you getting them in Eastern Europe where you're getting kind of cheaper but still good quality? So it's very hard to answer that question. If you give me a concrete example, I can give it a shot. But how much is it an app is the same as how much does it cost to build a house?
I guess okay, let me rephrase the question. So how much does it cost to build a very professional application? Like I'm talking like a top quality, like let's say a Tinder or like something like that. Like because these guys are a massive player. Like I'm guessing it would be in the millions. I'm just assuming that.
Yeah, so I mean, Tinder today, of course, they still maintain the app, they still develop, they have hundreds, if not thousands of people working on the product. So it's not really comparable. But if you just say, okay, I want to create a Tinder for myself and just pay a developer to create it, again, there are factors affecting. Do you want a top quality app? Then you'll probably get with top quality developers from the Valley, and you might be paying them a few $100 an hour at the very least. Or you can go with some Indians or Vietnamese or Asian developers where you might be paying them $20 an hour. So there's this huge income disparity where this will affect, of course, the final project price. And then an app like Tinder is not that simple because there is some aspect of social networking involved here. You need a server to host all the website, all the profiles. You need the ability to communicate with Dean web members. Now you need the ability to hold video calls as well. So all of these things add layers of complexity. And again, it makes it very hard to give an answer. But if you do want a quality app with good developers, I would say a Tinder like that, let's say with some American developers or UK developers, would not cost less than anywhere between 50 to 100K at the very least. That's kind of top-notch technology starting from scratch. Now, because Tinder is so popular, you do have a lot of templates you can buy today. So it might be a lot cheaper.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and before you created this dating app, did you have to validate your idea, or did you do any research in that space?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always the lean approach of testing stuff, right? It's not smart to go and put all your resources and time and effort into something that you haven't really validated. You don't know whether there is a demand for that or not. So the simplest way to validate is what you call an MVP, or a minimum viable product. That's basically another word for a very simple prototype. So with Blindlee, of course, we validated it. But before you build the prototype, you also need to validate the concept. So you go and ask random people, not friends. Friends are biased. You go and ask unbiased people, either through in the street or online. You can do some online surveys as well, about what they think about an app that does this, this, and that. And then you get different inputs. Oh, I think I would use it. No, I'm interested in only pictures. And then basically, if you do have some idea or concept validation, then you go to the next step, which is creating that MVP, the minimum viable product, or the very simple prototype. And this can be as simple as creating a very stupid website with just a simple buttons, just to see how people interact with it. Do they get the concept across? No one says you've got to build an app to test the prototype. You can test the prototype. Let's say if you had a dating game, you could test the prototype by manually matching people on pen and paper and then sending them emails. That's fine as well, because that's going to get you the dynamics of how do people use it? Do they like it? So no one says you got to start developing an algorithm with a dating app to start doing this matching. That's much further along. So you do it step by step. And if at every step you feel, okay, there is validation, there is excitement, there's positive feedback, then you go on to the next step and you make it a bit of a further prototype, a bit more complicated. You create an app or you create a bit of a complicated website. And then you focus on the marketing. Do not have a product which is perfect. Don't be afraid of that. I think Reid Hoffman, who's the LinkedIn co-founder, he said, if you're not embarrassed by your first product, you've launched too late. Your first product is not going to be perfect. That's fine. There's going to be bugs, but that's okay. That's the point. The first product is going to be out there for people to try.
Just get it out. Yeah.
Just get it out, make them break stuff and learn from it and see how they interact.
Yeah.
But going out with a perfect product, that's not the way to go about it. Even if you're a huge company, they usually don't go out with a perfect product. Yes, they might have a lot less bugs than a small developer like us, but they're still going to adjust their product a ton, and they're still going to do a ton of testing before they get to the final product. And you still see that, you see the way apps like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, their design constantly evolves. They remove the ability to see the likes of people because that's all adjustment based on feedback.
Yeah. These guys, Snapchat, Facebook, when you think about it, when you step back, these guys are so powerful. Like they have so much, they're just a cash machine, not just a cash machine, but they have so many intelligent people working in these companies. And they're now changing the world. They're literally changing the world with their power effectively.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Also, I'm curious to hear about the launch, how you launched from working on the app, developing, and then finally launching the app. What was that process like?
So I think we've covered Blindlee, but like the PR, about Relief specifically. So the wellbeing app where we match people with psychology postgrads. On there, there wasn't really one specific moment that can be labeled as a launch. If you have an excitement product and you launch it and you build some suspense, you can say, okay, that's the effective launch day. For us, it was more like, okay, we were released in the App Store, which technically is kind of the official launch if you want, but we didn't really push it as much yet because we first wanted to get a controlled group, seeing how people interact with the psychology postgrad. So it's available in the App Store. At that time it was available, but we still didn't want to promote it on marketing, just so we can see who are the users coming in, can we learn from them, and what is the feedback? Because like I said, this is a new category. It doesn't really exist. This is like the car coming out when there were only horses. So, if you suddenly make a huge launch for the car, it might work, but you might get a lot of negative feedback as well because people don't really know what it is. Why do I need a car if I can have a horse, right? Yeah. Of course, it's logical now, 100 years after, but at that time, it was just not very clear cut. So it's the same here. We want to make sure, what is the people's feedback? How do they use it? And that's why we kind of went on the App Store, even though it's a technical launch, we didn't really promote or announce that launch. And now we're a few months later, and we're basically allowing anyone in. We're getting a lot more users. We're starting with a bit of marketing. So this podcast is one of the many we've done actually, because people are interested in the topic, because just like we launched the dating app when it was COVID, right now, well-being and the mental health industry in general is also a hot topic. There are a wave of people who are stuck at home, and students or school students who can't go to school, or even adults that are stuck at home. They can't work, they don't have that good work-life balance. And this is going to affect the way we live. We all need to talk. It's kind of a human thing to need to talk. We're social humans. And when we're refrained of that ability to do social gatherings, then of course we need to leave some emotions out of us and to talk. And so that's why a friend is good, but sometimes you need a bit more than a friend. And that's essentially where relief comes out.
Okay. I want to kind of maybe go off the topic of apps for now, maybe change topics. And the topic is relationships. And you're obviously in one now, and your application is definitely working, testament to that, because I'm just curious, what's your relationship like at the moment?
So my relationship at the moment, I don't think I want to go too much into detail. This is for public record.
No worries.
But it's going very well. So we met on the app, and I live in London, so she moved to London. We met on the app, and at the moment it's going very well. We moved in together, and let's see how it continues. I would say no complaints.
And what's your background? So you're doing this as your side hustle, and then what's your main?
Yes, I'm doing this as so both Blindlee and Relief are side projects, things to keep the excitement running in the evenings and the weekends. And by the way, this is something I recommend, especially now. I don't know how it is in different parts of the world, but here in the UK there's an official lockdown, so I'm working from home, and many people are. And if you are not using that time productively, then instead you're just watching the whole day Netflix, or you're working and then watching Netflix, then you might have that feeling of time is going to waste, which is not a good thing at the moment. There's time where we're constrained at home, and we need to make sure we use that productive, whether it's a side project or creating podcasts or learning a language. But of course you can still watch Netflix, but if you're using all that time to watch Netflix, then you're going to see like the last year and a half having gone like that, like a wasted time out of your life. Whereas if you make it something productive, learn a new skill, learn a new language, create a podcast, create a startup, then at least you're not going to feel like that time has just gone to waste. You're going to feel like you've built yourself personally and professionally, and you've learned stuff, and you won't see one big blur from COVID when in a few years back down the line, we look at it back, at least you'll have seen like you've done something out of that time. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you stay productive?
So I stay productive with these side projects. So these are my two side projects, Blindlee and Relief. These keep me busy. However, I do have a full-time job on the side. I need to make some money in the end of the day, some salary to live in. London is not a cheap city, so I do need a salary. Blindlee is a free app, so we don't make any money on that. Relief is just starting out. We do take some cut out of the sessions. The majority goes to the student, but it's just starting out, so it's not significant to really live off. So that's why I do have a full-time job. And there, at the moment, I am the COO, so the Chief Operating Officer for a startup called Scholarship Owl, where we essentially match students with scholarships in the States, with private scholarship opportunities. And on there, it's very exciting. We have today 6.5 million students who've registered with us. So it's growing pretty quickly. And I manage the operational side today. That's kind of my day to day, and in the evenings and the weekends, I spend time on the side projects.
Wow. You must work a lot of hours then.
Yeah, well, I work a lot of hours.
I guess it doesn't seem like work though. I'm just assuming it doesn't seem like work. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was about to say. Yeah. When you work a lot of hours and you don't enjoy it, it feels like a lot of hours. But if you work like a lot of hours and you enjoy it, it feels like it goes like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the important thing. As long as you're enjoying and you're learning stuff, even if you make mistakes, we make mistakes all the time, and we've made many mistakes. As long as you keep learning and you enjoy it, then at least you don't feel like it's long hours.
Okay. How long have you been in that position for?
With my full-time job?
With your full-time job.
So I've been with Scholarship Owl for the last 2.5, maybe 3, just under 3 years now.
Okay.
So since I've graduated from my postgrad, so I graduated from my postgrad 2 years ago, and then I started working for them and some side projects on the side.
And do you mind? What did you study? Do you mind if I ask?
So I studied actually both bachelor and master's finance.
Okay, finance.
I have I have a very financial background from an educational perspective, and most of my friends today work in the big investment banks. You know, they work at Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, all the big banks. You know, typically when you think about finance, some work in private equity, and they have what we call long hours. They work their ass off. They might be earning a lot of money, but they work their ass off, and they're not always that happy. It's you really see on them, it's a big impact. They come back very late. They work many weekends. So I studied finance and I did an internship in finance, and I realized, okay, I love finance because I'm a numbers guy. I really love studying it, but I just hate working in finance. So then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to follow all of the people from my postgrad. Literally, we were 150, I think 149, except for me, or maybe 148, all in finance. There's maybe one or two, including me, that went kind of the startup route. And I love that decision because I still use my financial skills into everything. The operational side, the way we manage our budgets and finances for the side project and for the full-time company, and also for personal investments. So, you know, from a personal perspective to what do you do with your money. So that's kind of things I really like it. It has a numbers aspect to it. And I've always been a numbers guy, but I just decided not to make a career from finance.
Yeah, you seem like, just this is my first impression. Like you don't seem like a numbers guy. You seem like more of a marketing creative guy. I don't know. I'm getting that vibe from you.
I think I'm first and foremost a numbers guy, and then
okay, and then
in the last years I've been working on projects. I've definitely, you know, built up on my skills of the marketing and creative side of things.
Okay, cool.
It's good. It's good to have a balance of both. You know, they say your left brain is more analytical, the right brain is more creative. So I guess you need to use both parts, and having a balance of both is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I still think I'm better at numbers than marketing though, but at least I can do both.
Okay. And speaking of numbers, personal finance. Now, the reason I asked this question is because I guess, do you follow any budgeting or any I mean, like, is there any plan that you have with your own money or
So I do invest some of my money. I don't want to get too much because I'm not a financial advisor. So
sure.
you know, I'm not really anyone to give advice. But I do invest. I think at the moment, at least I'm still a relatively young guy. When you're young, you can take on a bit more risk than when you're older and you think about you know, fixed income and retirement. So there are some things to be made. When the financial markets hit in March in the pandemic, I was able to buy some stocks and then sell them again because it was very clear that, you know, that there was a crisis going on, but it wasn't a crisis from the traditional sense of a crisis. So that was a risky bet, but it paid off. And I think as young people, if young people are listening to this, there's definitely, you need to make something with your money, because just leaving your money on a bank account, of course it has risk, right? So I just want to make sure out there is a risk of losing money, but just losing money in your bank account in theory also makes you lose money, because your bank account might be making a very small amount of interest, but the inflation rate is going up on average by 2% a year. So that means your bread, your milk, your house, your whatever is getting 2% more expensive every year. And if your money in the bank account is only generating, let's say, 0.5%, then in reality, you might have gotten 0.5% richer from interest, but life has cost 2% more. So you're really poorer in a sense of real income, of income inflated for adjusted for inflation. So that's why there is some need to invest money. I don't want to recommend anything in particular. Some people like real estate, some people like financial markets, others like cryptocurrencies. They all come with risks and different payoffs. But as young people, I think we do need to take some risk, because we have the ability and the luck to look at things from a very long-term perspective. So if there is some short-term volatility, if markets really go down, you don't necessarily need to sell. You can keep it for the long term, because in the long term, things typically tend to go into an upwards direction.
Okay. Not a problem. All right. Well, I think I might end the show there, Sacha. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And
Sure.
I guess before we end, if someone wants to create an app, what advice could you give for that person?
The first advice I would give is first make sure whatever idea you have in mind, there's not so much competition yet. There are a lot of people who want to create app. And today there are over, I think, 2 or 3 million apps on the App Store and the Google Play Store. So creating an app is one thing. Getting your app noticed is a completely different thing.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack. So make sure when you want to create an app that is actually worth pursuing. That means one, looking at the competitor research, looking at the market. Two, validating your idea, like we mentioned before, speaking to people first, then building a very simple prototype to see how people interact. And if you're really still convinced after the research of the market and validation, you want to go ahead, then at that point, you need to make sure you scope your app out. You can't go to a developer and say, I want to create this app. You need to make sure things are well defined, because later on down the line, if you set a project, whatever is not defined is going to hurt you. So you can visualize something in your mind, but the developer, when you explain it to him or her, can visualize it completely differently. So make sure you have some kind of sketch or a Photoshop design or whatever it is, or even a Word document where you kind of specify, you write the specs of the app, because everything that's been defined, whether visually or verbally, is going to be a lifesaver down the line of the project, because there are definitely going to be things where you interpreted it differently than the developer. And then once you have the specs and the sketches out, very simple mock-ups of your screens or website, if it's a website, then the next step is, of course, finding a developer. The best way, of course, is to find someone, if you can find on an equity basis, if someone is very interested in the idea, to join, at least if the person is technical. The second thing you can try is finding university students. Computer science students typically want to get into different projects. They want to learn more. So you may be able to approach them and convince them about your idea and the vision and get them to join.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, or if that's not of interest, then you go to developers. You decide your budget and you reach, okay, do I have enough budget to go for a top-notch Silicon Valley developer? Do I have just enough budget to go with some Asian developer, maybe with an Eastern European one? And then you just start contacting different agencies, development agencies and development companies. There are tons out there. I don't want to recommend anyone in particular, but you can Google and there you'll find millions of them, and you get different quotes. But that's why it's important to have the specs and the visuals, because you're going to need to show that to them to get as accurate quotes as possible. And then my next recommendation is, if you do accept a quote, try to make it a fixed project fee, not a per hour fee, because there are definitely going to be delays. There are always delays in the development world. So if you do accept a per hour fee, you're going to be probably paying for these delays, because it's all extra hours and things that you didn't expect. But if you do accept a per project fee, you might still pay extra for things that weren't specified at the beginning, but a lot less than if you were continuing to pay by the hour. Okay,
so you recommend to pay a project fee instead of an hourly fee? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and that's
very
due
often,
to the
very often,
delays. Okay.
Yeah, well, due to many things, but the delays also. Very often they'll quote you a project fee based on an hourly estimation, and that's fine. But sometimes people say, okay, we'll start on X dollars per hours and we'll continue however long it takes, 2 months, 12 months, 24 months. That's very risky, because you can go into high bills. And when there are things that weren't expected and there are delays, you're getting charged for these delays. So if you can generate some project fee, at least you say, okay, we're paying 20,000 for this app to be developed. If there are delays, it's not on you, it's on the developers. The fact that they're delayed doesn't bill you, it bills them, basically, because they've already given a project fee.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, cool. And how can people reach you? So you've got minirelief.com. And
yes.
If people want to reach out to you, contact you, what's the best way?
So the website is minirelief.com. If you want to reach out to me, you can just send an email at hello@minirelief.com. We get access to that mailbox, so we can reply. So again, that's hello@minirelief.com. And then the app is available. If you just type in Relief, you'll find it. Maybe you'll need to scroll down a bit, but the title is relieve, improve your well-being. So that's kind of what you'll find on the App Store.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me. Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.